Once you win it, and you've got to go all the way to the end.
Lando into the final corner, his first win of the championship. Lando across the line to win in China.
Because you commit yourself to such a level where there is no compromise. You give everything you have.
The strategy paid off. He had one of the best hits I've ever seen on the medium tires. Next, they'll tell and wins the Monaco Grand Prix.
Nathan was the final chicane. Rudy's trying to go for it on the inside. There's still both wheels of May Will's old school's gone round.
Oh my word!
And you need more than anything a very clear mind to understand exactly when is the moment to be aggressive, when is the moment to be calculated.
He spun for Brendan's
Oh, wing image! Oh, Brendan's out!
He's out of race! Oh my god, he's out of race!
When you are under a lot of pressure, in a critical moment, in a championship or in a particular race, it's the one that can put together the combination between aggressivity and calculating things that will get the best result.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the League of Europe. We are here for round number 13 around the second Italian track over in Imola. My name is Jacob, of course, taking you guys through this as always. And also alongside me is, as always, Mr. Dan, aka Daka himself. Dan, how are you doing this evening, my friend?
Thank you very much, Jack. Yeah, I'm doing very well, and as always, very excited to get proceedings underway for the 13th round in a 17-race season for Imola. It's the San Marino Grand Prix. It's not technically in Italy, but we'll nevertheless, I'm sure we'll have a great race in store. Imola, a classic track. All the drivers love it, I think, and I will say Codemasters have done a great job with modelling this track into the game, so we should get a really good display here tonight. 17 drivers, again, not a full grid, but hopefully that's not going to detract from the action out there all too much. Round 13, round Imola, the championship opened up a bit last week, but it's still very, very tight. Jack, let's get into it.
Certainly is, and I was actually just about to say that as well. It's like, even though there is 17 drivers that are in, the main contenders are the ones that are still within this lobby. So Knuth, obviously, as you said, goes back up into the lead of the points. So Takata was in the lead last week, but because of Knuth taking that win in the end, even despite having a 3-second penalty from lap 1 and also the fastest lap, he goes back into the lead of the championship with 161 points. And then, as I said, the American, despite finishing 4th last week after a bit of a dodgy strategy call from him, ended up taking 4th. So he's now down into 2nd. 12 points deficit from the German up in the lead. Killer Blue is in 3rd with 105 points. I'd really say that they're the only sort of title contenders at the moment. With only 5 races left to go, including this one. Really, it's just those top 3. I would even say, like to say, it might even just be those top 2. Killer still has that outside chance. Obviously, with there probably being if Packer or Knuth somehow end up DNFing or anything like that. But they are the ones that are really the ones that are left in the contention for this championship. As I said, with 5 rounds left to go. Obviously, mathematically, there's still a lot of people, but let's be honest, it will be very surprising to see Knuth and Packer and Killer all DNFing for like the last 2 to 3 races. So really just those 3 that are in this title contention. But we may as well get straight over into Imola now. As you said, we have got 17 drivers here for tonight, and I've just been told by TDB that it is actually going to be inters all race long. So once again, we're having yet another wet race. Obviously last week it started off in the dry and went to wet very quickly. Now it's going to be an entire... It's going to be starting on those intermediates, so we're going to be, I'm assuming we're going to be seeing everybody out on a set of the soft compound tyres, and none other than the man that's second place in the championship at the moment is going to be the first one to start the lap. It's QVR Packer. Dan, go ahead, take this one for it.
Should be a fantastic lap here. Let's get a lap on board of this iconic track. QVR Packer, a lot of traffic in the way of the American, but he does manage to get towards Tamburello first off, using the curbs quite aggressively over on the inside. You don't want to ride them too hard or it will unsettle the car. Nice and clean though through the exit now up to Villeneuve then. A quick left and then a right, then try and carry as much speed as you can, preserve the speed and momentum, and now towards Toza, get onto the brakes. There's a bit of a short braking zone. Zerma already out of the session, coming out of Tamburello, and he's hit the wall. And that is a disaster early on for the Red Bull man, who's currently 4th in a championship, I believe. Packer easing the car through Piratella, and now towards Aqua Minerale. Very tricky uphill traction zone here, very easy to spit out the car. Packer, though, holds it together quite nicely. Now towards Variante Alta, getting himself onto the brakes, using the curb to maximise the width of the turn. And he actually validates on the second part of Variante Alta, but it looks like he is still pushing on to try and get a lap on the board, so we'll get a bit of a reference and then we'll see the valid laps coming later. Onto the brakes, probably the biggest stop on the lap for Ravazza at 1 and 2, and now through the exit end, punching out of the last corner, now to the line. Packer opens up, it will be invalid, but the first time is a 1:14.4, which is a fairly respectable time, but we'll see how the rest of the times match up as the first runs of laps come flying in as we get qualifying underway.
Certainly will. Slash is going to be the next one, or the first one technically across the line. He's done a 1:20.6. Obviously not exactly well, it is more of a banker lap for the Haas driver, but this is now going to be more representative times. Old school 15.878. I'm looking for maybe Paul to be a very low 14, potentially. Maybe we see one of the top guys getting into the 13s, but I would say low 14s. I think we're going to see it as the pole position for this evening. But yeah, Old School, the first one that's actually going to do a proper lap on board, puts it into first. And then saying that, 2 more drivers end up going in. I don't know if there was a bit of a lag or something, because Zardam has actually left the session. Rudy and Creco put in their time, so 14.5 for Creco and a 14.8 for Rudy, and just riding on board with the Irishman of Gary Donegan, who is still on his first lap as well. As Hardy goes, well, it said Hardy's on pole, but I don't think that's right, because he says he's second with a 14.759, and same with Killer Blue. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, I think we saw Zerma lag out, and he's obviously the lobby host, so we could have some issues there. I think what's happened, because I was actually on board with Krika when he set that 14.5, and it didn't register until about 10 seconds after he crossed the line that his time had actually come up. So I don't know what exactly has happened there, but now we've got to try and just keep going and look for the rest of the times to come in. TDG Knuth, championship leader, is coming out of Rabatza now to the line is the Alfa Romeo. It's a solid time of 14.8, but not among the quickest. His teammate TDB is invalidated on his lap out there, as next up we have Dope Lev. Then Indy Alpi gets a bit out of shape through the last Ravazza, but now he's going to come up to the line as hard as he can. He crosses, goes 7th on a 15 flat. So a bit of a spread in the time so far. Of course, there is going to be that little variation in the setups, but I'm still not exactly sure what's going to happen with the lobby. Zauma lagging out. Hopefully he gets back in, because, well, with Krigo's fastest lap not being shown as the fastest lap, the session is completely upside down at the moment, Jack.
Yeah, as I said, I don't understand how that's going to be the case, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, I'm hoping it is going to show that Krico is going to be on pole for when this does happen, if the times all stay the same. But I'm riding on board with the Dutchman of TDB. He did invalidate on his first lap, but he's definitely pushing on now for this lap, as he's just coming around a hairpin at the end of Sector 1. So yeah, we'll just keep an eye out on the Dutchman, as he is just making his way around through Sector 2. Can be very tight and twisty around there as well, with a fast left-hander. Is very, very easy to invalidate on that one. You know, you want to try and take that as fast as you can. Probably one of the highest speeds in the corner on the circuit, and the Dutchman's gone round. And I can tell you now that that chicane's going to be the death of quite a few people, as Knuth, his teammate, goes onto pole by 13 thousandths of a second. So despite not putting in probably the best first lap of that the German driver could put in, he definitely puts that straight onto pole for his second lap around. And obviously a lot more people are now also on their outlaps to start. Car Mentalist will be the one that will be next across the line, so we'll ride on board with the Brit in the McLaren. He's had quite a few string of decent results as of late, in all honesty, as well, Dan. Like he obviously picked himself up his first podium this season earlier on. I can't remember exactly what track it was at. I'll have a quick look, but I think it was over in Hungary he picked up his first podium, and then ever since then he's been like sort of top 4, top 5, and then in 6th in Portimao, despite starting all the way in last as well. So yeah, I mean, Carmentis, as I said, he's had a few good string of results so far, and I'm assuming, well, we might see him try and do the same for tonight as well.
Yeah, the last few races, the entire season really, has been characterised by this man charging through the field after less than stellar qualifying performances. We'll see how he goes here in qualifying. The McLaren driver just heading out there, Variante Alta then. Very tricky chicane to get right. You have to try and mount the curbs to take it quickly, but that's when you risk invalidations or the car just getting out of shape and spitting out. But Carmentelis nice and clean then, nice and cautious, not taking too many risks through Rabazza, but now coming up to the line is the McLaren. We'll see whether he is able to puts himself onto pole on a 14.3. Now this is a man not renowned for his qualifying excellence, but a 14.3 convincing pole position. Carmentelis, is he showing up over one lap for the first time this season? That'd be a shock and a half. But Carmentelis, a tenth and a half up, and that is a marker that has been set down on presumably an intermediate base setup. That's a very strong lap for the McLaren.
That was a very nice lap indeed from him, to say the least. TDB comes into the pits. I thought he was maybe going to try and finish his lap on those set of tyres, but it doesn't look as if he is. Rudy going off the circuit, I think, to let a Red Bull go by. I think that was Old School who's starting his lap as well. But yeah, a very nice lap from Carmentelis. Like you said, he's not usually known for his qualifying. He's sort of similar to like Zaldemar as well. Not known for his qualifying, but in the race seems to do a lot better. But this time around, Carmentelis straight on pole. And you've got to remember, it is a wet race as well. So if he starts on pole, very, very nice. Well, it'd be a very, very nice qualifying position for him. So, yeah, I'm quite intrigued, if I'm honest with you.
There's one big opportunity to overtake in the dry at this track, and that's with DRS heading into Tamburello. With that taken away, getting on pole position could be very, very powerful. So that could be a sign of great things to come for Ariel Carmentelis, but still there's a lot of quick drivers to put down hard lap times. So let's see what this grid has in offer. Now Emily Crico did a big first sector, and even bigger middle sector. He's 3/10 up, which would be a comfortable pole position. So Crico is flying at the Ferrari. Now what can he do to round out the lap then as he heads up towards Rabazza, getting himself onto the brakes, right on the curb there, maximising the width of the track, and again on the exit trying to keep the momentum all the way through to the line. Emily Crico, I think this could well be pole position for the Ferrari. 8 minutes to go to the line. It's a 14-1. Wow, Emily Crico, a driver that is known for his qualifying pace, storming to the top of the timesheets, more than 2/10 clear. And I said that Carmentelis' time was a bit of a psychological edge. Packer comes over the line a 14.6, just behind his championship rival, but half a second down on Crico. The championship leader's 4/10 down. Crico, that 14-1 is going to be very, very difficult for even the best of Division 2 to topple. That's a stunning lap as we head into the dying embers of the session. But QVR Maledict, a strong lap to P3. The times are definitely coming down. I think we'll see a lot of improvements in these last 7 minutes yet.
Certainly will. Slash coming up to the line as well. He's sitting in 12th at the moment, straight up into third position. 4 thousandths of a second up ahead of the Portuguese driver of QVR Maledictus. So very nice lap from Slash indeed. And yeah, you're right, Dan. We're going to be seeing a lot more time starting to topple down now as well. Gary's just come across the line, and I believe he's actually going to be starting a proper lap now. So the Irishman are going to be going for his second qualifying lap. Of course, we've got 7 minutes left to go. A lot of guys out on track at the moment. TTG Tibos is actually going to be the next one, I believe, across the line to complete a lap. He hasn't got a lap on the board as of yet. Tries to take as much exit curb as he possibly can. Thought he was running that very wide there, but still managed to keep that valid. Up to the line goes Tibos, and it's a 15.4 for the Brit in that Mercedes car. But I know he's not going to be particularly too happy with that, and may try and look to go again, probably on his final run, and try and improve on that time for certain. A few other guys also out on laps. Doplev, I believe, is actually a new driver to the league as well, if I'm not mistaken, but he's coming up to the penultimate corner and the final corner now as well. I haven't seen if he's actually up on his time, so this will be news to me if he is up on his time, but this could be a very good time nonetheless. And saying that, he actually invalidates at the final corner, going a bit wide. Thought that's what Matt Tibos was going to happen, or was going to happen with Matt Tibos, but it didn't in the end. Our championship leader of TCG Canoof is 2 tenths down on his time, so I don't think the German's going to be looking to make an improvement. I'll watch until the end of Sector 2 to see if he does, but let's have a look as he comes up towards the chicane. In fact, he's made up that 2 tenths, and he's only 500ths down on his time. So, in fact, you know what, we're going to stick with the German driver, because, as I said, he could be looking to improve on that time. He's gone purple Sector 2, but I guess that might be just the game saying that he's gone purple Sector 2. His teammate as well, though, is just coming up towards the line, and in fact, he's coming to the pits, I'm assuming possibly due to an invalidation as well. But, yeah, Canoof, he's now making his way up to onto the line. Is it going to be in contention with those other guys? He does improve, and it goes up into 3rd position, overtaking a fellow TCG member of his into P3. So nice lap from the German, our championship leader as well, Dan. Car Mentalist though, he's on another lap and might try and go for this top of the timings.
Something I do need to bring to everyone's attention, something that I really should have mentioned earlier, I'm very sorry for that. Emily Crico, back in Portugal, he didn't race, not in Portugal, sorry, in Belgium, he didn't race in Monza. He got given a quali ban during this race, so really he shouldn't actually be qualifying at this moment. It was just said in the Division 2 chat by QVR Campbell, so I'm not exactly sure, but essentially, he's not technically meant to be there by rights. Carmenzel nevertheless, it's a 14 flat. He is really on it today. I think I did see Killer Blue was on a lap. He did improve to 6th position at the moment on a 14.5, down on his lap now. But yeah, just to bring that to attention, Emily Crico, it does technically have a quali ban. He is still sitting in the pit lane, but he's already set a lap to put himself currently in position 2 in this session. Now, if that sticks, the Ferrari driver, well, that could have very serious repercussions for him if he doesn't find a way to disqualify himself. Even then, I think it could well be quite serious because, well, disobeying a qualifying ban, that's, yeah, not exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how it's going to be taking shape as well. As TTL Dylan, oh my goodness, massive bit of oversteer at the exit of turn 3, coming up towards the long straight. He went onto the gravel, and I'm amazed he's managed to hold that, because that looked like that was a very hard save. So very well done to him for saving that car, but I feel like that's not even going to put him in ahead of Matt Tibos's time of 15.4, despite him, even if he does finish that lap. So I think he's one of the only ones that's out on a lap at the moment, so keep on board with him. As I didn't even realise Mr. Ariel Coxey going up into P8 with a 14.721, as Dylan once again, massive bit of oversteer coming up the hill as well. So yeah, Dylan not looking like he's having particularly too much fun around this circuit at the moment, but as I said, we'll stick on board with him anyway, because he's yet to put a lap time on the board, and I believe it looks like he's going to finish this lap anyway. So yeah, as I said, we'll keep on board and we'll keep on riding along with him, as Crico is out at the moment, and I believe well, I'm assuming that he may need to try and disqualify himself, like you said, because at the moment, yeah, he's still sort of going out to try and get some laps on the board, I suppose. So I'm not too sure how that's going to play out, considering that he has that qualifying ban. But anyway, running on board of Old School, he's coming up towards the line, does improve on his time ever so slightly. I say ever so slightly, it was 2 tenths up on his time to put him up ahead of Dopelev, but only into P12. So that's still at least a point if it was an actual race. So yeah, I'm assuming Old School may try and do something with that one.
Yeah, Carico is now blocking the entrance to the pit lane, so you should see him getting disqualified pretty soon, I imagine. So that's his method of trying to get out of it. Personally, I would have just parked it on the track itself, and it would have disqualified him anyway. There he goes, he has been disqualified from the session, so that 14-1 will be revoked. So everything will just open up again, and you'll see a bit of a gulf in the times between P1 and P2. Knuth in second place. I think ordinarily he'd be happy with that, but he's got, if he wants to get pole position, a bit of a mountain to climb. Nearly 4 tenths clear commenceless for a man that doesn't do qualifying very well. That would be one of the biggest margins of the season, but you know the big hitters are going to be coming for him.
Certainly are, and there's one big hitter that's on a lap now. It's QVR Packer. He's making his way around the first hairpin now. He's a 10.5 up on his time just in Sector 1 alone. Obviously, we'll have to see at the end of Sector 2, as I think Sector 3 is only really just a couple of, like about 4 or 5 corners. So we'll ride on board with the American now, and he is doing a stellar job coming through Sector 2 now. It's just this uphill chicane is where you need to be careful. It's where a lot of drivers can lose it. He looks like he took that very, very nicely as well. Now coming up towards the end of Sector 2, 3.5 tenths off on his time, so this will put him at least up ahead of Knuth if he does manage to keep this valid, which he does very nicely at the exit of that chicane as well. Now 2 more corners to go for the American. Is he going to try and, or is he going to be able to do this right on board with him? Takes that inside curve very nicely, and the final corner as well, and maximises the amount that he can take up towards the line. Packer, is this in contention with Car Mentalist? It's just shy of his time, at 14.104. So what a lap time it was for the American, but
TDB?
it just wasn't enough. It's TDB, yeah, 14.473 on the board for the Dutchman, and again, it's only P6 at best. So I'm assuming we're going to see him maybe try and go for this next lap as well. So as I said, we'll keep another eye out on the Dutchman. As I said, I'm assuming he's going to try and go for an improvement. Gary, no improvement on his time either, but I think this is his actual lap as Canute.
Oh, it's valid.
Yeah, no, he hasn't validated on his time as well. So, yeah, a few guys now just coming around to finish their final laps or start their final laps, as Gary has invalidated on his final lap. So P10, the Irishman, is going to be the best he is going to be starting for tonight.
Yeah, I think you'll be... Well, of course, there won't be any advantage for starting outside the top 10 because, of course, we're going to be starting intermediate conditions. I can say Rudy is on a flying lap in the Haas, so keep an eye out for him. Certainly then, Old School coming up to the line next up, but he hasn't validated. He's going to look to try and go again, but the time has expired. He won't be able to. Coxey now in the Ferrari, just over a tenth of a second up, goes 7th, 14.4. Here come the rest of the grid now coming through. We have got Williams up to the line, backed off then at the Haas of Rudy. I said he was on a good lap. He does go into 4th position. Behind him is TDB. TDB though not on. He did improve. He would have gone into P3, but he invalidated. Maledictus did a good lap earlier. He's up to P3 in the session, 14.3. Carmenzalis then, current provisional pole setter, slightly down on his time. Keep an eye out for any more lap times coming in. The Mercedes to the line, Killer Blue goes into 3rd spot, then just half a tenth off Packer. Carmenzalis doesn't improve. Is the door open here? Behind it's Canute, championship leader, flying along on the track, crosses the line just behind in 4th place. Maledictus is backed off. Hardy is backed off. Dope Lev, last car on the track, is also backed off. That is it, and a shock pole position for Ariel Carmenzalis, Packer, Killer Blue, Canute. The championship contenders all line astern on the track, but Carmenzalis has edged them all out. One step down for him, but now everything's been thrown up in the air because we have an intermediate start, and well, we all know how that can affect things then. But getting on pole position in a track where it's difficult to overtake anyway, with DRS taken out the equation, with visibility affected, that's a great start for Carmenzalis, but it can be difficult to convert, and the guys behind, the championship contenders, they will know how important it is to get to the front, and they'll all be gunning for it. Fascinating start and race ahead of us, Jack.
The only time I can remember, other than in Division 3, of Carmenzalis being up this high, was Monaco in, I believe, Season 2, where he took the win in Division 2. So this could be Carmenzalis. I think this will be one of his first wins, or his second win, sorry, ever in Division 2, if he can convert this pole tonight for this win. So if he does that, I honestly, that's just completely fair play to him. But he does put himself on pole, and you've got to remember it is light rain race, so he might have had a dry setup, whereas a few other guys might have opted to go for a wet setup. So I don't know. We'll see how setups come into it later on in the race. But Packer alongside him, Killer Blue and Canute just line up behind him, with Maledictus in 5th, Rudy 6th/7th, TDB 8th, Coxey 9th, Hardy in 10th, Gary in 11th, Old School in 12th, Tibos in 13th, Dope Lev in 14th, Dylan 15th, Zarma in 16th, and hopefully he is back in the session as well. And Kriko, he had that quali ban, so he managed to disqualify himself in the end. So he will be starting in last. But I mean, the pace that he had, he has the pace to try and take the win for tonight. But at the back of the grid, we've already seen one so far in the divisions tonight. In Division 3 specifically, RJ starting in last and coming towards, finishing in first. But that was a dry race. This is a wet race, so it's all completely different from that one. But yeah, I mean, we could be seeing, well, there's going to be a lot of different sort of turnarounds in this, I think, Dan.
Yes, certainly. And of course, well, intermediate conditions, it just throws everything up in the air, because not only is the issue of setup, it's just the issue of driving itself. Some drivers adapt to these conditions better than others. I remember, the last race in Monza, we had intermediates for the second half of the race, pretty much. And generally speaking, as we now get away for the formation lap, the championship contenders in general had an edge over everyone, really, in those wet conditions. Knuth led, he did come under pressure then. Gary was very strong. Killer Blue was really strong in those wet conditions, and he's starting third, so keep an eye out for him. And of course, way down in 8th, TDB, renowned for speed in these conditions as well, so he can try and work his way through, but he's compromised himself from that qualifying session. So we have a lot of unpredictability in front of us, but Carmentalist, he also knows how to handle these conditions. There's a lot of wet specialists on this grid, so it should be a fascinating race. Overtaking is going to be difficult though. Imola is not suited for overtaking, and without that DRS, it's going to be difficult. So really, the best opportunity is going to be off the start. And the thing is, I want to point out here, there is a bit of a kink at the front of the grid, so actually getting away, especially in the wet, those front guys are going to struggle a bit to get off the line.
They certainly will, but you're also forgetting one wet specialist in this as well, and it's a certain someone starting down in 12th position. It's Old School 3000. You know, this guy, he's renowned as well for being one of those wet specialists. So with him and TDB in 8th and 12th, Old School, I've seen what he can do in wet conditions. I feel like he is one that's it's like an outsider one to possibly get in, I would say, in the top 5 for tonight, if it remains as Inters all the way through. In my opinion, I feel like he's one that we can see as an outsider one. So, yeah, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I've just been told in the chat from Carmentalist is that is actually his second pole in LOE history, despite being in Division 3 last season and finishing in 2nd in Division 3. This is his second LOE pole ever. So I suppose that just goes to show he's not much of a he's not a fan of the qualifying, as there's a spinner in the back as Dolev in 14th position at the final corner, so he's going to have nice and hot tyres, so at least
Zadama as well,
a bit of an advantage. Yeah, Zadama's also gone around as well, so a bit of an advantage for those guys having that little spin at the end of the formation, because they'll have a much warmer tyres in comparison to the other guys next to them. Might have a good start from the both of them.
Well, let's see how that is going to unfold. They will have that straight run off the line. So it is Commentalist and Packer the front row, but it's a long run into turn 1. We'll see what happens. I'll hand it back over to you, Jack. 32 laps ahead of us at the iconic Imola circuit. Take it away if we do get going. Yes, we do.
We certainly do. For some reason it says Old School is the one that's on pole, but no, it's now all fixed itself. So we have now got the 4 and the 5 red lights on for round number 13 of season 6, and it's lights out. And away they go, and it looks like Carmentalist actually getting a better start ahead of Packer. Packer, though, does look as if he's got a bit more straight line speed in comparison. This Killer Blue are now also all over the back of Carmentalist, but I think Carmentalist is going to have the inside for turn number 1. The American's not going to be able to do anything. This Knuth trying to go around the outside of Killer Blue to have the inside of that chicane, and he gets that move done. So the German's now up into third. Killer Blue coming back at him now, and Killer Blue straight back up into 3rd position. Further down the field, Slash and the 2 Haas drivers are both going at it. Rudy up into 6th, Slash now down into 7th. TDB remains in 8th, is a little bit further down as well. Bit wheel banging going on. TDB I think getting out of shape as Knuth, and Killer Blue just trading places once again. Killer Blue going for a bit of a switchback on the German and keeps that move done, but Carmentalist, what a start he has had. He's already 6 tenths up ahead of the American from that start, and Carmentalist is just going to just try and ride this off into the wind. Gary and TDB a little bit further down, having a little bit of a battle going on, and Gary going around the outside of TDB. TDB not exactly having the best of starts, despite being probably one of the better ones in the wet conditions.
Yeah, it just shows how in any which way the start can unfold. He's trying to hassle Gary, hassling Slash just up in front of him. A gap has opened up because it got very scrappy down at the back of the field. Packer has closed up the Carmentalist. I think Carmentalist made a bit of a mistake. The McLaren driver just holding on to that lead. The top 4 pulling away slightly. Maledictus and P6. Gary now trying to attack Slash to the outside, and Slash runs deep into reverse. So Gary gets underneath, snatches the possession, and now off into the gravel is the Haas. He tries to recover that, and he comes into contact with Coxey there off the track of Slash into the pits after an encouraging start. That is nightmare at the end of the first lap for the Haas man.
Yeah, it certainly is, and a little bit further down the field as well. Hardy's going for that move on TDB coming up towards turn 1. He's got the inside of the Dutchman. Dutchman's going to have to go to the sausage curbs and almost comes back on track to take out Hardy, but ended up jumping it and ends up coming back out on track into 9th. And now you've got Old School Hound in the back of him. Coxey down into 11th, a second now behind Old School. As you said, Slash came back on track a little bit dangerously. I wonder if he made contact with Coxey with that, as well as a little bit further behind. Zaldama going for that move on Dylan, coming through the hairpin now as well. Zaldama keeps it down the inside, and I think he's going to have that move done. Dylan actually having a little bit of a squirm on the exit, so very nicely done from Zadema, get himself up into the 12 and back into the points as well. So the Dutchman is just trying to move his way up through the field as well. But yeah, the top 6 all sort of remain the same as well. Killer Blue manages to actually get that gap from Knuf. So obviously last week it was the gap of Knuf trying to get away from Killer Blue. This time it's Killer Blue trying to get away from Knuf, and he's doing a stellar job at the moment. The top 3 already pulling out almost a second up ahead of our championship leader. But Calm Mentalist, you've got to give this man a round of applause at the moment. I know it's only coming on to the 3rd lap now, but already he has managed to hold off the 3, shall I say, championship contenders behind him. They're all 3 behind him, and he's just driving off up ahead of these guys. And look at the top 6 as well. The top 6 have got a massive gap to Gary down in 7th position.
Yeah, the gap's getting to open up. It's much harder to follow in the wet, but Carmendelis, there has been a few small mistakes that has allowed some opportunities for Packer. He's holding on pretty nicely for the moment. Packer and Killer Blue look very strong on pace. Knuth hasn't left at them quite as well as Gary makes a mistake, so Hardy goes through to P7, so Gary looks to be struggling early. TTL Dillon as well has got underneath Zanima then, and Rudy now on Maledictus heading into Toza, gets in front of the Alpine man, so Rudy up to 5th place. Remember his pace in the wet at Silverstone. He won the race by about a gargantuan margin, got a penalty in the end which relegated him, but he is very quick in the wet as well as the Haas driver, so he's going to try and work his way up to Knuth. Carmental's holding that lead. Packer though looks fairly comfortable in behind him. Killer Blue just trying to go with him, overtaking those so difficult, so Carmentalist doesn't have to be driving all that quickly, just avoid a mistake, and the Williams driver is going to have to work really hard to find an opening.
Yeah, he certainly will. The Alpine driver of Maledictus is just going a little bit wide at the exit of the uphill chicane, and ends up sort of having to take the off-road of that, so that drops him down a little bit further from Rudy. But yeah, you're right, Rudy, I know he started over in 6th position, but he's doing very well in that 5th now. He needs to try and catch back up to those top 4 guys, because otherwise he's just going to be left to battle with Maledictus, as Packer's now the one that set the fastest lap of the race. It was Carmentalist briefly, but Packer's now the one that set that, as Gary and TDB through that final corner were both going at it, as in fact TDB has come into the pits very early on lap 4. So I wonder if he's going to try and go on another set of inters to go to the end, or if he's picked himself up any sort of damage. Let's have a look. He has in fact picked himself up some damage, so he's getting that wing change. So I wonder where that was. As in fact, back up to 5th position. Maledictus now already back within a chance of getting past the Dutchman of Rudy up in front, but the Portuguese driver is just going to have to remain behind him for now, and this is allowing Hardy to start in the catch up to these guys now. He's only 2 seconds behind, and Rudy I think must have made some sort of mistake, because he's now dropped back a second from those top 4 guys, so he's now 2.5 seconds opposed to that 1.5 seconds he was on the last lap. But yeah, TDB, we're not too sure what's happened with him, but in fact he's even come out behind TTG Slash as well.
Yeah, both those guys have had damage repairs early on in the race. TDB was scrapping away with Gary, I saw, on the last lap, so I think he may have picked up damage in that old battle between those two. But Gary in the end has managed to get away, as Dylan just moving past Coxey there. He's had a good start to this race, just gradually moving his way through the field now into the top 10. Zerma will try and get up towards Coxey as well, as slips back to 11. Coxey, I don't know if he did pick up damage, because he did come together with Slash on the opening lap, but he is still continuing on then. But Zerma now beginning to make the pressure in the Red Bull. Further up the road though, Maledictus is still right with Rudy, but you can see as well on this straight where most of the time you'd see that advantage of DRS coming into play. Not so much here, but further down the field, Zerma now attacking Coxey, trying to get to the inside towards Tabarillo. If he gets his wheel alongside, he can try and outbreak it, but Coxey with a little bit more momentum, a bit more straight line speed. Dope left, trying to get in amongst this now. Zerma brave on the inside, they bang wheels in, back comes the Ferrari wheel to wheel here. They bang wheels through turn 3, and through goes Coxey, but Zerma fights back to the inside of the field now. They're level on the brakes. Bravery from Coxey around the outside. Zerma trying to get back underneath. Brilliant racing between these two then. He feints to the inside, but Coxey will hold on to 11th spot. But now Dope Lev is running outside, gets forced off the track a bit by Zerma. All fair though, I think. Back goes the Alpine, up goes the Red Bull. Those guys all scrapping away, but they're leaking tight to the guys in front. Coxey just lost out to Dylan in the last lap. Now no more than 3 seconds against him now. These two have to find their way through quickly, as does Tebos in behind.
I imagine Coxey has got damage. There is no way that he's lost 3 seconds just from battling alone. So I think Coxey's got some sort of damage on his car, because he just defending so hard from Zardama. You can see Zardama's got the pace on him, but just Coxey doing a stellar job on defending ahead from the Dutchman. But the Dutchman now using his ERS to go around the outside to he's going to have the inside for the first double left in the penultimate corner, and I believe he's just going to get that move done. Very nicely done indeed from Zardama. But now Coxey is going to have the benefit of having a bit of slipstream. I know it's a lot harder overtaking the wet than it is in the dry, but the slipstream is still going to be there for the Ferrari. But let's have a look, because Dope Lev is also all over the back of the Ferrari driver, so just keeping an eye on it. And in fact, Dope Lev is going to go for a move on the Ferrari, as Ryan's going to try and hold this one around the out or down the inside of Dope Lev, and keeps that move done, as well as Rudy. I think must have had a little bit of an off because he's dropped back behind Hardy, and now Gary is the one that's pressuring him as well for that P7 position. So I don't know what has happened to Rudy, but yeah, he's obviously had a little bit of an off. I think that turn 3. A little bit further up the field though, Packer and Car Mentalist have completely dropped Killer Blue. 1.5 seconds now up ahead of the Brit in the Mercedes. These two guys are running this flawlessly. Packer is doing everything that he can. The only problem is he's got Car Mentalist in front of him, despite, I know, Knuth being in 4th. This would be a massive jump back in the championship if he can get in front of Car Mentalist, but that's the hard part. As a little bit further down the field, I think Dylan has had a bit of an off at the chicane, and yeah, he certainly has, and he's gone round and now goes towards the back of that train that he managed to get to the front of in the end as well. So very unfortunate for indeed, but he's now going to be at the back of that train.
Yeah, that's going to be very disappointing, and all that work to move up to the field, all put to the bed, but he's got to try and refocus, trying to get back at these guys if he's managed to avoid damage. This train is extensive then. Rudy came in, so he must have hit the wall, I imagine, from that error at Tamburello, so you can see the mistakes creeping in. Very, very tricky stuff out there, very treacherous. You want to be at the front, and that's where Carmental says, but Packer shadowing him all the way here. TTL Dillon gets a penalty in the pit lane as Rudy... I thought that we were getting enter conditions all the race, but Rudy has elected to go for the mediums. Is that just a mistake on his part, or are we really going to lose out? I don't think we're losing the intermediate conditions, though. I think that's just an error of judgment from the Haas man.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised, because it's still raining on my screen as well, so I'd be very, very surprised if it is going to be changing over to the, to dry conditions, but... yeah, I feel like it is just going to be staying as wet conditions. But yeah, Packer, look how close he is to the back of Car Mentalist. You can see the American is trying to charge down on the McLaren in front of him. But Car Mentalist is doing everything that he can to stay up ahead. As Maledictus in 5th. Picks himself up with 3 second time punting. Knuth and Killer Blue once again both going at it. They've been going at it a few times, and now he gets that moved on. Old school down for in the field, gets a 3 second time punting as well. As there's a bit more yellow flags up behind. I think that is Dylan down in 17th position, having an off at turn 3, and Dope Lev also picking up a 3 second time punting. It's all going on now down as Packer very close to the back of Car Mentalist, coming up in towards turn 1, but he's not going to be close enough to getting any sort of move done. As said, in the dry conditions, I'm sure Packer would have absolutely breezed past Car Mentalist by now, but in the wet conditions it's just that much harder to try and get that move done. You need to try and get it done manually, and you need to try and get the better exit as much as you possibly can to get that move done, and at the moment Car Mentalist is just the one that's having the better exits.
Yeah, out of the critical corners, and that's the problem when you're following in the wet. It's harder to punch out of those critical traction zones to set up those overtakes, and you're seeing Packer struggle with that. Carmentalist makes a bit of an error heading through Piratella, but he will still be fair. And away is Killer Blue, and it's a bit of a snap there heading out of Piratella, but he holds onto the car just about. He looks to be struggling a bit though compared to the rest of these guys. Knuth through on the last lap and actually beginning to hunt down the top 2 just a little bit, but Killer Blue, after it looked like he was hounding Packer early in the race, now suffering. Has he taken more out of the tyres, or is it just a series of mistakes from the Mercedes man? Nevertheless, slipping back from the top 3, Dylan retires from the race in the pit lane. He's had enough of it, but I think that QVR Packer now beginning to come into his own, and he knows now with Knuth chasing him down all the way, a move on Carmentalist is adamant, but at the moment he can't quite do it. Carmentalist still getting the exits off the critical corners to maintain that race lead, but Knuth is charging, fastest lap coming at the pair of them. We could have a 3-way fight for the lead very, very soon.
We certainly could. Gary picking himself up with 3 second time penalty down in 7th position. But yeah, I actually thought Dylan did retire in the pit lane, but no, he actually retired out on track. I don't know if he was trying to go into the pits, but that was actually at the pit lane entrance. So Dylan, I don't know what had happened with him, but he's now out of the session. A little bit further down the field as well, Slash and TDB both going at it, and Slash manages to get the move done on TDB. I think TDB had some sort of off, because he's now dropped about 2 seconds behind the Hash driver, so I wonder if he's picked himself up any sort of damage. But yeah, in fact, he's got no front wing, so I don't know what has gone on with the Alfa Romeo driver, as Coxey gets the move done on Creco around the outside, and then Creco tries to come back on track. Oh my goodness, what is going on?
That is quite staggering. He didn't look to hit the wall all that hard, but Creco nevertheless, he tried a outrageously ambitious move. He got squeezed onto the grass by Coxey towards T1. He still tried to hang it, got punished for it in the end. It is now out of the running as Emily Creco. I think at the moment though, it looks like the yellow flag is going to get cleared by the looks of things, as they've held off for this long. So I'm not sure if we're going to get a safety car from that. There we go, it does eventually clear. Green flags now out there on the road. TDB had to go into the pit lane, so I think you're right. I think he did have an off. You can see how treacherous these conditions are. It's a lot of skill required to try and hold on to the car, and you can see how much some drivers are struggling, because the field already, I say that, Tebos is charging at Coxey towards Rabassa, nearly will to Willie, has to lift off, now trying to outbreak him around the outside. Coxey trying to hang on in there inside. Then it's Ferrari and Mercedes, and Ferrari wins out, or does it? He gets a bit of understeer, heading through the final corner. He feints towards the pit lane, tries to take the shortest run he can. Tebos following in that slipstream. There's still points on the line here for these possessions now. Down to P12. Now Tebos trying to look round the outside. Cox is going to give him the space. Can Tebos do it? He breaks incredibly late. Can he get that one done? He's going to go over the curbs, force his way through this contact, and Tebos is through. Now I'm not sure if the contact was a bit aggressive, but nevertheless Tebos, you can't fault his bravery there, his commitment. Coxey had to get out of it. Tebos does go through, but do you think that was maybe a bit over the limit, Jack, or was that fine?
I don't know. That was very, very close in my opinion, but I feel like Matt Tebos was sort of there. I feel like Coxey tried to maybe almost push him towards the curb, but yeah, Matt Tebos had to hop over those sausage curbs, and he was already in front anyway. So I would say, in my opinion, that was fine. But at the same time, it was a little bit aggressive from Matt Tebos. Obviously, there wasn't much he could do because of those sausage curbs. But yeah, as I said, that's the only thing I would be saying. If there weren't any sausage curbs and he could just take that fine, then yeah, I'd definitely say may need to give that place back. But because of those sausage curbs, it's sort of, I would say, more thrown him into the path of Coxey. But yeah, I think Coxey has got some sort of damage, which he's been dealing with all race long. So I think that's just why he's just been a lot slower than what we'd normally see from him. But yeah, I mean, a little bit further up the field, it's just, well, it's all just, it looks as if it's like a leader interval, but it's not. It's an actual interval between all the drivers, and it's just, you know, Packer's 6/10 behind Carmentalis, Knuth is 1.3 behind Packer. Then it's 3 seconds from Killer Blue and Knuth. Then it's 3.3 from Maledictus to Killer Blue. So they're also, as I said, it looks like a leader interval for the top 6, but I can tell you now, it's not. It's just an interval between each driver. All of them are completely spaced out, which I think this might actually be probably one of the most boring races of Division 2 we may see. But I don't think Carmentalis is going to be complaining at that, because he's the one that's leading it at the moment. The only problem for him, he's got the American fighting for this championship hound in the back of him, and not only that, you got the championship leader that was starting to close up to the back of those top 2.
Yeah, trying to, but it has sort of levelled out over the last lap or so. So he's front two, just found a little bit of pace. Packer, well, he can't really find pace, really. He's just got to try and match what Carmentalis is doing. His pace is influenced by what the McLaren is up to up front, but he does lead the way, just 11 laps in. We'll see if there's any variation in terms of the strategy. The AWS, I know not to trust them mainly, but they did suggest the Inters could do the entire race. So we will see if this is just a straight fight up at the front conditions. Not expected to evolve all that much, so we will see. Carmentalis still leads it. Packer behind him. I think Packer is just probing for a mistake, but so far the opening just has not been shown to him through the first third of the Grand Prix.
I will say Carmentalis did go a little bit wide though, coming out at the exit of that chicane, so I wonder if he's picked himself up his first or potentially even second warning for that one. Obviously none of these top 3 guys have a penalty as of yet. Killer Blue in 4th does, and so does Maledictus in 5th, but with the gaps that they've got between each other, it doesn't particularly matter at the moment. It looks like they'll still finish in that position no matter what, unless of course there's some like massive mistake from each of them. But yeah, I mean, Car Mentalist and Packer, as I said, it just looks like they're going back and forth on like, who's catching up and who's getting away. It's literally a game of cat and mouse at the moment between these two, and it's looking like Car Mentalist is actually starting to pull away a bit more from the American. He's now got the gap up to about 8/10 of a second, so Packer must have made a couple of little mistakes on this lap in comparison to Car Mentalist, and Car Mentalist is just going to try and pull away a little bit more now from the American. And again, yeah, like you said, it's getting the exit on those critical corners, and Car Mentalist just got an absolutely lovely exit coming out of that final corner. It's now boosted that gap from 8/10 to now 9/10 of a second up ahead of the American. So yeah, Car Mentalist, he is doing everything he can, and he's doing it right, because he's still leading this he's still leading this Grand Prix, sorry, not championship, but he's still leading this Grand Prix, and he's doing a very good job of it, keeping up ahead of the two championship leaders.
Yeah, he's in a nice rhythm at the moment. Then Packer just going with him. Then Car Mentalist also does have the most battery out of this top three. It does look to be a 3-horse race. Killer Blue looks very strong early, but just hasn't quite been able to live with these guys in the back half of the race. TDB is just out in front of these guys, which says just the disaster of a race that he's had. He's just about a lap down, only 12.5 laps in. Again, though, that ebb and flow continues. Packer very strong in the first half of the lap, then it's Car Mentalist, a bit of a slide the rack in the rally. That's just Packer, but he holds on to it. But these guys now, of course, so much on the line, and of course Packer, you know, you're not going to probably see anything overly aggressive from the Williams driver, because he knows if he gets an incident, all of a sudden the floodgates are open for the man in P3 and the championship leader to sneak through. So while Packer is hounding Car Mentalist and has done the entire race, he doesn't want to take too many unnecessary risks, because Knuth in behind is right there ready to pounce.
He's now gotten that gap down to 6/10, so Packer's looked a lot better on this lap now in comparison to Car Mentalist. 3/10 of a second, he's a lot quicker now from our race leader. But yeah, Knuth, he just still can't seem to find any inroads. He's still 1.5 seconds behind the American up in front of him. So yeah, the German's just going to, he's just, as I said, they're all in a bit of a rhythm at the moment. Excuse me, as I said, it's quite a bit of a dead race at this present moment. But yeah, all these guys, all these top three guys, or everyone probably is just in a bit of a rhythm at the moment. The two Red Bulls look like they're getting a little bit closer to each other now as well. Old School and Zadama obviously making a very good recovery since he was stuck behind Coxey for quite a few laps, and obviously having a little bit of a battle with him. But yeah, Zadama now 1.6 seconds behind his teammate, so we could be seeing maybe a little bit of team orders going on between those two guys there, and as well as you've got a fellow XL member of him up in front of Gary, about 3 seconds up the road as well, who has that penalty. So Zadama, if he can try and close that up, probably about get past his teammate at least, then at least he'll be getting the jump on him for that position. But I think TDB must have had another little bit of an off, because Car Mentalist and Packer have caught back up. And in fact, saying that, I didn't even realise Packer has dropped back quite a bit. I think he dropped back a second in this lap. Must have had a bit of a slide somewhere, because now Knuth is 5/10 behind him, and he's 1.6 seconds behind Packer, as Hardy in 6th picks himself up a 3-second time penalty as well.
Yeah, so now Packer, he must have made an error, and that gap now to 1.7. Knuth just, I imagine, just sensing a bit of a chink in the armour of the Williams in front, and this is a real test for Packer now. Ooh. DRS has been enabled? Surely not. It's still raining out there on the track. The track still looks pretty greasy, but I wonder if that's going to entice anyone. Again, we saw Rudy try that earlier, I believe. Is anyone going to try and pit for slicks? Because the conditions, to me, Jack, have not evolved in the slightest. No. DRS has been enabled, and in these conditions, that, frankly, is very bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to play out. Matt Tibos has come into the pits. He's got a 5-second penalty for speeding into the pits. But
going mediums.
Yeah, so he's going to be the first one to test it out, if this is going to go well for him. So we'll keep an eye out on the Mercedes driver and see if he's going to make any inroads on the guys that are running intermediates. But yeah, Knuth, I think must have made some sort of mistake, because he's now dropped back 1.1 seconds from Packer, and then Packer, he's still dropping back from Car Mentalist. So I wonder, are we going to see the American maybe come in this lap to try and get a bit of an undercut on Car Mentalist, unless Car Mentalist also comes in this lap? I wonder, are we going to see these leaders maybe make their way into the pits, as Rudy picks himself up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane as well. Now that they're coming up towards the pit lane, it's going to be who's going to have the bigger balls, shall I say, to come in. The top three are all staying out. So yeah, they're not coming in. Zadama has gotten past his teammate, by the way. I think, as I said, a little bit of team war is going on between the two Red Bulls. So Zadama now up into 8th, trying to chase down Gary. Funnily enough, the only one in this top 8, other than the top 3, that doesn't have a penalty, so he may try and get a few positions jumps on all of these guys. But yeah, so Rudy and Matt Tibos out on a set of the medium tyres, which I'm quite surprised, because I believe that they could probably try and take the softs and go to the end if they wanted to try and go for a dry tyre. But again, mediums on this is not actually that bad of an option. I was saying that, Rudy, massive bit of oversteer coming through turn 3. I'm just trying to keep an eye out on these guys, because it don't look like they're making any inroads from the other guys that are on the set of the intermediate tyres. So yeah. I don't know if it really, I know DRS has been enabled, but I don't really know if it is dry tyres. Yeah, it's very close.
Yeah, it depends, because I imagine now the rain probably has just got a little bit lighter. Matt Tibos to T2G Slash, that's the gap I've been looking for. It's been ebbing and flowing, but generally it's sat around 13.5 seconds the entire lap. So if anything, there isn't much of a difference. But if it's going to continue to rain the whole race, do you want to sacrifice that pit stop? It's a very long pit lane here. Even if the slicks do evolve to be slightly quicker, if it doesn't go all the way to slicks, so this rain doesn't stop completely, then we could be seeing as I think as Rooney's just gone round, so you can see the dangers of it. The slick's not really any slower, but not really any quicker at this stage. Maybe slightly slower. There really isn't much in it. So very difficult to call now. But unless it goes all the way to slicks, at the moment, still the enters of the tyre to be on.
Yeah, I'd definitely say the enters are definitely the best bet at the moment. Carmentis, I think, must have made some sort of mistake as well, or Packer is on an absolute charge, because he's now only 1.2 seconds behind the McLaren, almost about where he was before. Gary comes into the pits, I'm assuming for a fresh set of dry tyres, as Rudy comes into the pits, 5 seconds of speeding as well. Are we going to see him retire? We certainly are. So Rudy now out of the race as well, despite being after being lapped as well, a couple from a lot of the guys on the grid. Gary is in and has chucked on a set of the soft. So now we're going to be seeing if it's the way to go for the dry tyres. Packer has caught up to comment this again. He has a massive slide though coming out of that chicane, and once again it's dropped him out of that 1 second. So the American trying to put that power down, and he just puts it down a little bit too early at the point where he has a massive slide. And so was Knuth as well coming out of that chicane. So comment on this, even though he keeps on getting caught up a little bit at a few certain corners, just the pure mistakes that they're both making behind the two championship leaders, shall I say, it just can't seem to make inroads on Carmentis, because he's just keeping it nice and clean. He's keeping it in a rhythm.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to do when you're out in front. Knuth does set the fastest lap of the race. He has just clogged within that range, and of course, DRS is enabled. He didn't quite get it this time, but he will get it as Kelly Blue comes in, gets a penalty, as he did last week. He managed to get that one removed. Now, Gary is behind Coxey, and at the moment, there's not much in it between the tyres. He gets the penalty. He hit Vacuum Minerali. Very unlucky there, must be said. Killer Blue has now gone to slicks. Now, if the enters cannot go the entire race, as AWS suggested, then this move to slicks could be a good call, because as it stands right now, there's not much in it between the tyre sets. But if it continues to evolve and the enters can't go the entire race, then maybe, just maybe, a move to the soft tyre could be worth it.
I think we're going to see it this lap. I'm going to keep on board with Gary, because he's going to get the move done on Coxey. I think Coxey, oh no, he's not coming into the pits, but yeah, DRS is enabled, so the Irishman's going to get the move done on the relentless driver next to him. So now up into 10th goes Gary. Now this is where we're going to see if it really has evolved that much. Gary, he's going to be trying to go for a fastest lap. If he sets the fastest lap of the race by a good few seconds, then I think we're going to see a lot more drivers come into the pit. So we'll keep on board with the Irishman now. He's 15 seconds behind Killer Blue, and in fact Killer Blue was 6 seconds behind Doplev at the beginning of this lap. He's now 5.3, so I think we are going to be starting to see a few more guys make their way into the pits. TDB's coming in, I'm assuming for actual information for Knuth, because I'm assuming those two are in the party. As Gary, a massive slide, Killer Blue, a massive slide coming up through the chicane as well, and uphill. But yeah, he's now dropped that to 4.7 seconds from Doplev. So I think we're going to be seeing a few more guys come in. Despite it raining, we're going to be seeing them come in for slick tyres.
This is such a bizarre situation, Jack. I don't believe this. We're going to keep an eye out then. Killer Blue was the closest guy to the leaders that went in. Of course, he did pick up a penalty. Commentalist has made a bit of a mistake, I think, because now Packer just within half a second. The first time in a while he's managed to get within range, and now he has DRS. So the danger and the pressure mounts on the McLaren man. And Knuth is right there ready to pounce as well. A lot more drivers switching to the slicks. Now the rain is still coming down, just not quite as heavily, I think, think the Slicks are definitely the quicker tyre, and there is confirmation, fastest lap from XL Gary. I think the leaders may well have to come in unless they can bank on the enters going all the way to the end. There's a long way to go. We'll see if it happens, because I'm not sure if it keeps raining, the Slicks may not be able to make up a full pit stop, but let's see. But I think we may now be seeing a slew of the front runners come into the pits, as I think now Packer hounding Car Mentalist. Does Car Mentalist take the plunge? I think he's losing the lead here if he stays out, so let's see what's going to happen. He does stay out. Ooh. Packer dives in. Knuth follows his championship rival, so this is intriguing now. Packer and Knuth coming in, Car Mentalist staying out with just 13 laps to go. Is he trying to go to the end? Because otherwise I think he may have been caught out here if he tries to stay out, because I think now the Slicks, the faster tyre, and if Car Mentalist tries to pit in a lap later, both these guys are going to get in front now. Yeah, they'll definitely get the jump on him if he does try to pit this lap. So I wonder, are we going to be seeing Car Mentalist trying to stay out and go to the end of the race? There's so much mix of strategy going on here. Zaldama has opted to stay out on a set of the intermediate tyres, and look at where it's brought him. It's brought him between Packer and Knuth. So realistically, Zaldama could really help Car Mentalist out here if he does manage to keep on these intermediates, because he looks like he's running quite well on these inters, despite it being probably soft tyre or slick tyre weather now, shall I say, despite it still raining. Yeah, Zaldama could really sort of help out Car Mentalist here. Even if he does pit in this lap, it will still mean that he will only come out ahead of, or Packer may come out up ahead of him, but he will have that DRS to play with if he does opt to come in. But yeah, look, you can see the time coming down. It's now 25.7, literally made up about 4 tenths just in one corner alone. Keller Blue has been lapping about 2 seconds a lap quicker than the race leaders, so that's now what Packer's coming into play. Car Mentalist, he is going to pit. I think he may have been caught out here. I think Car Mentalist may have just lost this on an undercut, so let's see Packer, has he timed this just right? He's being helped immensely by XL Zaldama. Zaldama holding back. TDG Knuth cannot get through just yet, he'll have to wait to the straight. Car Mentalist now coming out the pit lane. Has he just missed the boat? Can QVR Packer jump him here? Let's see as they come up towards the lane. QVR Packer now fastest lap. TDB, the Slicks are getting quicker and quicker, the enters are falling off. Car Mentalist now emerging. I think Packer's going to have him, and have him by some distance. Yes, he is. Look at that. Packer jumps Car Mentalist. Knuth gets towards Zaldama, so it's all changed around, and Packer has got that absolutely right. Now goes to the front of the race. Car Mentalist 2 seconds back. He gets a massive moment. Packer just about hangs on to it. 2 seconds out of the gap. Knuth now with Car Mentalist. Car Mentalist staying out, but Packer has caught him napping, and now has a consistent lead in the race. Just has to hang on for the final third of the Grand Prix now. Yeah, Car Mentalist left it 1 lap too late, that's for sure. I'm surprised he didn't come in when he's seen Gary's fastest lap pop up when he made his pit stop, and I'm sure he's probably got someone telling him as well that he probably either should have pit on the last lap, or if he's got someone telling him that he should have pit on that lap, I would sack that Jeff if I were you, because that was probably the wrong call for them. A little bit further down the field, Matt Tibos I think has made a bit of a mistake at the final corner, because I believe he has gone around, certainly has, on those medium tyres, and there goes, and Slash is about to overtake him as well. So the TCG boys not running too well in this race, other than obviously Knuth, who's sitting in 3rd position at the moment, all over the back of Car Mentalist. Car Mentalist, I was hoping we might see him back on top, but he's actually starting to catch back up to Packer, despite obviously coming out about 2 seconds behind him. He's now only 1.5 seconds behind the American, so I wonder if we're going to see Car Mentalist gain back in DRS as Gary, and 8th has had a spin as well. I believe that's coming up the hill as well, so the Irishman not exactly having a very good race either. But yeah, Knuth sets fastest lap with the race. A little bit further down the field, Killer Blue getting a move done on Zaldama, and Zaldama still not pitting. He's still staying out. He's the only one that has stayed out on these intermediate tyres. He thinks that he could probably get a big enough, or he's got a big enough gap up ahead of Maledictus, where he could still finish in this top 5 if he stays out on these intermediate tyres. I don't think a top 5 is possible feasibly, because these guys are about 2 seconds at least a lap quicker, maybe even more than that. But he may well be able to try and get up in front of Don't Lev, either way, because he's stayed out too long now. You know, he almost has to commit to this and hope that they can hold out, but the enters are going to start dropping away in terms of tyre wear, as Packer makes a big mistake from the lead, and now Car Mentalist is going to nip through here. So Packer, as Car Mentalist start to reel him in, QVR Packer's made a mistake. mistake. Commentalist leads. Knuth is right with these guys, and now the race is on. Just over 10 laps to go. Packer is not out of this at all. He'll have DRS as well coming up to try and get back in front of the McLaren, but he's made a critical error out of Aqua Minerale on the 22nd tour of Imola, and now it is really up for grabs here. Commentalist now leads the way. Packer has got Knuth pushing him. Knuth's got a lot of battery, so Packer's going to have to deploy it as well to defend and try and attack on Commentalist as well. The overspeed now with the DRS is immense. Commentalist will hold the lead, but now it's on now. Three-way fight for the lead, and this can involve any which way. Now Commentalist leads Packer. Packer, a big mistake. He was getting reeled in with these guys, but now he's right in the thick of the fight.
That is a massive mistake, and probably a big mistake in this championship as well for the American. Running very nicely up in first, and then having that mistake, as you said. Again, it's at that uphill chicane. He just does not seem to come to grips with that chicane at all in the wet or now or even in the dry tyres. So the American, unfortunately for him, he's just that's a massive mistake for him, and I feel like that as I said, that could be championship defining. Sorry. So Carmentes now goes back up into the lead of the race again, coming through that chicane. You can just see Packer's now just feathering that throttle to make sure he doesn't make that mistake again. But now it's allowing Knuth all over the back of the American, and now I think Packer is going to have to start looking behind him as opposed to in front of him, because Knuth is all over the back of him, and you can see how much more battery he has got in comparison to those top two guys. About 20% more. I know they're all still quite high on their ERS, but yeah, Knuth has got a lot more to play with in comparison to those top two. So with DRS being enabled, I think he's being saved with that. However, Knuth, he's going to be trying to drain a bit more of that battery out, and where he can, he's now going to just be able to gain up on them. Whether he'll have it with the DRS or whether he'll do it at maybe at a different corner, I suppose we'll see within these next few laps.
Of course, now Commentalist leading the way is having to burn that ERS to just keep the pace up, so Knuth is in a really good spot now in terms of battery here. He's going to try and push Packer. Packer will not want to overtake Commentalist until the last few laps, that's for sure, as the rain continues to ease off. And Zerma's strategy, as it stands right now though, he could still very well hold on to at least a P7, especially without a penalty, which I think would be about where he was before. So it wouldn't be a loss really at all for XL Zerma with that bold strategy, but no one else in the race has been that brave, so they all just stick it out there at the moment. Commentalist leads Packer, leads Knuth. Another mistake by Packer, back up in the line, and now Knuth is up and alongside his championship rival and through, heading into Variante Alta. So Knuth, a critical move, but now out of DRS range. He needs a big exit, he needs a big run here. Commentalist will try and break him off here. Watch that gap. Is it going to stay above 1 second? Is it going to dip under 1 second there as they hit the braking zone for the last complex? I think Knuth may well have just missed out on it, so Commentalist just has a bit of an opportunity to break away, and Packer will be hungry to regain that possession too on his championship rival. But Knuth flying fastest lap of the race. He's trying to burn that battery to stay in front, as Gary now has crashed out of the race in a Tamburello. Now watch, it's a VSC, not a full safety car, a VSC. So now these front three are all going to have to time this restart then, this de facto restart. Knuth has went into AI mode, interestingly enough, so maybe he's just checking something on strategy, I'm not quite sure. He now gets it back under, no, he's still under AI. Commentalist then just leads it from Knuth and Packer, but this VSC could be an opportunity for either one of these guys to either break away or jump their rivals. This, don't get it wrong, it may be yellow flags, but it's a very crucial part of the race for all of these three.
It certainly is. Commentalist just needs to get that very good restart in comparison to everybody else. Zadama has now opted to come in, and he's come out and emerged just behind his teammate and Dope Lev, so he'll at least jump the both of them if he can maybe get past Old School and Dope Lev as well. Obviously with this virtual safety car, once it has ended, I'm sure we'll be seeing these guys get straight back underway, but they're just warming up their tyres as much as they can to make sure that the rain is not going to be trying to cool them down, because obviously it is still raining. Pretty much, I think it's getting a little bit harder now, the rain, if I'm honest with you. It looks like it's starting to come down a little bit more than what it was a couple laps ago at least. So I think it is still going to remain as dry tyres, but yeah, I mean, I really don't know how this is going to play out, Dan. Obviously, these Knuth and Packer may not get any DRS because it's still under virtual safety car conditions. So I don't know. In fact, DRS has just been enabled. Knuth had to brake a little bit, I think, because of his delta, and that's now allowed Packer to just hammer it down and you can see the closing speed he's got on the German. This is championship battle between the pair of them, but Knuth holds on up ahead of Packer, and now Knuth is needing to try to chase down Car Mentalist. You can see though he's got a much better exit coming out of turn 3 than what the race leader has so far. Car Mentalist has led every single lap so far in this race, and in these last few laps we could be seeing that race lead change, despite Car Mentalist. As I said, he's done a stellar job in the race lead so far.
Yeah, well, he didn't lead one lap. Remember, Packer did jump it briefly, but then I made that mistake. Commentless was very close to the outer track limits through Piratella. He's trying to break away from that DRS. If he can, Zerma uncharacteristically picks up a penalty. That's kind of set him back in that fight. Dope Lev running well in 7th spot, just in front of Old School. Old School trying to get back to him. These three, and the three at the front, really the closest on-track battles. Knuth gets a much better run through Variante Alta, and now he will have DRS, but Packer might not get DRS. He needs to break late here. Heading in to Rabazza, he just about doesn't manage it. I don't think Knuth will have DRS off of Commentalist, but Packer will not have DRS off of Knuth. You can see the fastest laps coming through there. Knuth is flying at this stage. He's having to work to stay with Commentalist, though he does have that DRS to keep him in. Packer now trying to stay with him, and now both Knuth and Packer are stretched for DRS. If they let it slip, it could then and potentially end their chances of getting the victory here today. As Packer again goes sideways, just saves it out of Tamburello.
Yeah, Packer is playing this very dangerously now, to the point where it's now causing him to stay out of that DRS from Knuth. Knuth, he's still, as you said, he's borderline on DRS with Carmentis. He's about 8 tenths behind him, which is still going to be in, which just, I suppose, does sort of save him, and it could play it in a part for the final laps of this race, shall I say, because if he does manage to stay in that DRS, he's just going to then ease up closer to Carmentalist, and then look to go for a move, as I said, in one of those final 2 laps. So yeah, I feel like if we're going to see any move go down, it will be within one of those final 2 laps from Knuth, if he does manage to stay within that DRS. But yeah, even then further down in the shot, you can see Killer Blue just emerging up that hill, 5 seconds now behind those top 3 guys. And yeah, Killer Blue and Maledictus all just both like driving their own race at the moment. But saying that, Hardy has the fastest lap of the race at the moment. Obviously the timings are still going to be coming down because it's getting drier now, but Hardy is starting to hound the back of Maledictus. But I said further up the field, Knuth, I said Hardy had the fastest lap. Knuth now just takes that straight back and is now closing up to the back of Commentalist. That DRS for the German now is going to be crucial. As I said, the last couple of laps, we may see that lead change once again. Commentalist, as I said, he's led the majority of this race. Obviously, as you said, Packer had taken the lead ever so briefly from those pit stops onto the slick tyres, but we might see the German take the lead very, very soon. A bit of a lock-up going in towards the hairpin, but keeps it nicely done as well through there. And Packer's sort of caught back up to the back of the Germans. So yeah, this is really that three-way fight for this race. Zadama gets the move done on his teammate down in 8th position, and closing up to the back of Dopelev as well for that 7th position.
Yeah, Zerma moving through nicely. TB gets a penalty to cap off what is just a nightmare race for the Dutchman. This will be a race to forget in terms of both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. Both are still on a knife edge at this stage in the season. Knuth is remarkably strong heading to the Variante Alta. That's where he gains all his time on Commentos, gains all his time on Packer, Zerma, and Dopelev. I think Doplev's made a bit of a mistake heading out of Toza, and through goes Zerma. 2 moves in 1 lap. That'll do him just nicely, and now he looks to try and go off into the distance. Now Knuth, though, very close to Commentos. He's got a bit more battery as well, but is he going to want to do it just yet? He's borderline out of DRS to Packer as well. Commentalist will maintain the lead at the moment. But how on lap 29 of 32 in this Imola race, I think now Commentalist is leading, but I think Knuth is just biding his time and waiting for that opportunity in the last couple laps. He doesn't want to go for it yet, but he's very close to Commentalist. He looks to maybe be the stronger man at this stage in the race, and Knuth, I think, biding his time to try and get that move done, and a win at this stage in the season with Packer at P3 at the moment would be huge. The difference between Knuth winning this race and Commentalist winning this race, even if Packer stays in P3, is absolutely critical in the context of the championship. Knuth and Commentalist both run wide, and I will say Knuth is on 2 warnings, I believe, at this stage, so he is not out of the woods just yet. Both Commentalist and Packer, I believe, on 1 warning at this stage, so it's far from over in terms of the penalties. Actually, Commentalist did pick up a penalty earlier on in the lap at Piratella, so Packer's in the best situation, and it's not out of the question. These guys could still pick up warnings if they're not careful on these dying laps.
Yeah, as you said, 3 laps left to go once they do cross the line, and that's when, if they do pick themselves up a penalty, then that's essentially their, well, they'll still finish on the podium, but that's essentially their race sort of done and dusted. But yeah, Knuth and Carmentelis playing with fire at the moment, and well, it's paying off for them, but they just need to hope they don't get one more warning. Knuth still within that DRS of Carmentelis. Packer has completely dropped out of that DRS from Knuth, so it is at the moment a 2-horse race between these top 2, Carmentelis and Knuth closer than ever to the back of the McLaren driver. So I wonder if we're going to see Knuth on that next lap go for the move on Carmentelis. If he does get that move done, then there's obviously he's got one more lap he needs to try and play with, but I wonder if he's just maybe going to go for it on the final lap instead with that DRS. I don't know, I guess we shall see indeed. I'll tell you what though, there's one person that could play a factor into this, and ironically that's going to be Knuth's teammate of TDB, because TDB is only just in front of him, and if TDB gives Carmentelis that DRS, that's going to stop his teammate from getting that move done. It's a little bit further up in front, and it's Matt Tibos going around up at the top of that chicane, and yeah, TDB, in fact, he's just going to let Carmentelis and Knuth go through. So I'm assuming he's probably got the stream on and probably heard me say that, so yeah, I apologise for this, but yeah, as I said, we could be seeing a move either on this lap or on the final lap of the race. Knuth just needs to get the best exit he possibly can out of that final corner if he does though.
Yeah, but Carmentelis is pretty strong through these last 2 corners at Ravazza, and that's just keeping him in front. And my heart was in my mouth then when Tibos picks up a penalty, because all 3 of these guys could be in danger of that. Packer, though, is dropping back. So I think even if Carmentelis gets a penalty, Packer has completely fallen away in the last few laps, so he's just not had the pace to stick with these 2 great men. As now, this penultimate lap is so crucial. Knuth knows he'll have one big chance heading into the last corner, or the first corner on the last lap, and he's got to try and set that up now. Stalk Carmentelis through this penultimate lap and try and bounce what he can. Carmentelis needs to do what he's been doing and being strong through the last few corners and punch out and stay in front. Knuth, we know, is going to be more aggressive, more attacking than ever. He's held that battery back for the chance that he gets to try and wrestle this lead from the McLaren. He's 0.5 of a second back then, as we do have back markers in the way. That's Slash. Hopefully he gets out the way just to keep this as fair as possible. As I say that, he does pull out the way, but Carmentelis got a really good run to Aquino Rally, and now Knuth needs to pull one out the back here, but he's been so strong here for Variante Ultra, and he is again. He gets a bit of oversteer though and sets it back. Carmentelis has a decent advantage here. Knuth's going to struggle. He's using all the battery he can, but Carmentelis, I think, may well have done enough. Let's see. Can Knuth fight it back? He's so aggressive through Ravazza. He gets a great run here, does Knuth. Does he get the exit he needs to? Carmentelis maybe just a little bit stronger. The gap just opening up now. The DRS, the ERS coming into play for the Alfa Romeo, but he may well be just too far back. But here comes the overspeed. I think he's going to be too far away though. He can't get to Carmentelis. They both burned all their battery off. Now Carmentelis leads. Knuth just holding on behind him, but all Carmentelis needs to do is get through this last lap without a mistake, and the race is his. Yeah, he certainly does. So they've both burnt all of their battery. Knuth, that was his one opportunity to get that move done. I think he's played it a little bit too late as the German driver. He may still try and get the fastest lap, but Carmentelis going a little bit wide coming out of that hairpin. Knuth keeping it as tight as he possibly can, but yeah, Carmentelis just getting a little bit of a better run out of the hairpin. But yeah, that was the one and only opportunity for DRS that he could get that move done, and unfortunately for Knuth, that's now gone. So he needs to try and do this. I would probably say the only place he can is in those final 2 corners, but the only problem, Carmentelis is very strong at those last 2 corners, so it's I feel like Carmentelis, I think, has gotten this win on track. So we'll keep up, we're watching these top 2, as in fact Carmentelis makes a little bit of a mistake through that chicane. Knuth now still all over the back of him, but I think he's still too far away to get that move done. Carmentelis, he led since lap 1, he had a little bit of was down into 2nd position from those pit stops, but managed to get that move done on Packer and managed to get back in front. Carmentelis, this is his 2nd ever win in Division 2. He will take the win for tonight. Knuth will take 2nd and Packer will take 3rd place. Knuth will extend his championship lead by another, I think, 4 points, because I think Knuth did pick up the fastest lap of the race. So congratulations to him. Yeah, an extra 4 points up ahead of Packer. So that gap goes up to 16 points.
What a race that was in the end. It was very sort of boring within the first 20 odd laps. When DRS got enabled is when it all started kicking off, Dan. Killer Blue does end up finishing 4th. 21 seconds, by the way, behind Car Mentalist. Maledictus in 5th. Zardama in 6th, despite going for a bit of a ballsy strategy. It did look like it paid off for him in the end. Hardy in 7th. Old School in 8th. Don't Lev will be in 9th, and Coxie will be 10th. Slash in 11th. TDB will pick up the final point for tonight, and then Matt Tibos, unfortunately for him, out of the points as well, Dan.
Yeah, and I also want to point out Hardy lost his front wing on the last lap, so he drops behind Zerima. Zerima gets 6th in the end, despite that very ballsy strategy he used. In fact, if he did do that, he might have been challenging up near Killer Blue and Maledictus. Coxey will be the last over the line for 10th place in what was a very scrappy race down the field, it must be said, but up at the front, we got a very tense race. Wasn't much overtaking, but between all those guys, Zerima gets the driver of the day. Great recovery from him, certainly. But between those top 3, they all drove absolutely superbly given the conditions. Carmentalist, though, resists all the pressure from the top 2 in the championship. Knuth, I think, will still be happy. He does gain some points on Packer, which wasn't looking likely early in the race. But yeah, maybe it wasn't the most exciting race between those 3 in terms of out-and-out wheel-to-wheel racing, but you have to say the standard of driving up at the front of the race was absolutely phenomenal, given how tricky it was out there.
Yeah, it was so... I don't know how to describe that, to be honest with you, Dan. That was it was definitely a race of strategy, a race of whoever's going to be the one that sort of keeps it as clean as they can and keeps it on top. And well, Commentalist has proven that for tonight. He got the pole and he got the win. I said he did this in Monaco. He's done it again tonight in Imola. Congratulations to him for taking his second win in Division 2, his second ever win in Division 2, shall I say, and his first win of the season. Now 2 podiums to his name for this season as well. Knuth, our championship leader, as I said, gains an extra 4 points up ahead of Packer in 3rd. Killer Blue in 4th, Maledictus in 5th, as I said, Zadama into 6th from 16th on the grid with that ballsy strategy played off for him very nicely. Hardy in 7th, Old School in 8th, Dope Lev in 9th, Coxie round out top 10, Slash in 11th, and as I said, TDB picking up the final point of tonight. Tibos in 13th, and our DNFs of Gary, Rudy, Creeko and Dylan. Unfortunately for those guys, not picking up any points for tonight as well. But I suppose we better get these top 3 guys up in the party, and I'm assuming we're going to have all of these guys wanted to chat about that race, because that was, I said, that was a race of mind games for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt, a very tactical affair and a very tense affair up at the front of the race. I'm glad that these guys were all going at it, because the rest of the field was very spread out throughout most of the event. But those top 3, they controlled the race. They drove superbly and they gave us a great show. Especially the man that's just joined the party. I'll hand it back over to you, Jack, because we're going to hand it over to I can't believe I'm saying this, our race winner for tonight, Ariel Carmentalist.
Yeah, so Carmentalist, your second ever win in Division 2. That looked like that was an absolute struggle. How was that feeling for you, my friend?
It's hard to put it into words, I would say. I don't think I've ever stressed out so much in my life, and I've had like 4 interviews in a day before. Nothing has ever been as stressful as that. That was horrendous from start. I don't think I enjoyed a single minute of it, if I'm completely honest. So, yeah, I mean, utterly amazed. I don't think anyone, including the race director, wanted me to win that race. So I'm just stunned. I'm completely stunned.
Well, I mean, that was also your first pole of the season. Obviously, qualifying, I know you guys knew that it was going to be sort of intermediates at the beginning. Did it actually say it was going to go to dries? Because I was told that it was going to be like intermediates all race. Was that the plan for you guys as well? Were you just hoping it was going to be like intermediates for the entire race, or was you told that it could go to dry tyres in the end?
It was kind of... It said it was going to be intermediates pretty much the whole race. The weather radar said that the rain was going to mean pretty much exactly consistent the whole race.
Yeah.
But I think when we loaded into the race, we realised that it was... The intermediate conditions when we loaded in were already fairly close to dry tyres. It wasn't like intermediate close to wet tyres, if you know what I mean. It was intermediate close to slick. So It was kind of always on the bubble as such. And I didn't want to go for the softs because I worry that if I put the softs on, that we could get a safety car or a virtual safety car, and then the rain could come down again, and then the softs would be terrible the next lap. So I was kind of worried about that strategy. But as soon as I saw, well, Gary set that fastest lap, and then he set another fastest lap the next lap, and I thought, yeah, I can't stay out in the Inters any longer. They're just going to get worse. I have to come in for the softs. So, yeah, I was annoyed at that time that I'd lost the lead to Ethan, but yeah, I just didn't want to take a risk and go too early for the soft compound tyres and then throw it all away.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's actually what I was just about to ask as well. I was going to say, because you came in a lap later than obviously Knuth and Packer originally, and obviously Packer came out up ahead of you. As I said, that looked like that was one stressful race. So I'm sure you're glad that it's definitely over. Obviously, next week we go over to Baku. No, we don't. So we go over to Mexico next week. I think that's also a track that you're quite fond of, if I'm not mistaken.
I've had a good history in the past at Mexico. The races at Mexico tend to go pretty well for me, but I'm not a fan of the track that much on this game. I kind of have the same problem at Mexico as I had at Monza, where I just don't really have a lot of traction there. I feel like I'm kind of sliding all over the place. So that'll be an interesting one. But I think the track itself, the amount of penalties you can get and the different strategies, I think should play into my hands a bit. It'll be more akin to what I've been doing for this season. I think this race has just been a bit of a one-off.
Well, I would say one-off, but at the same time, you've already had a podium this season, and you look like you've been a lot more on form since that podium in Hungary. So I would take that win and just run off with it. But yeah, I mean, Dan, have you got any questions for our race winner for tonight?
Well, I guess my question for you is: are you worried heading into these last 4 races of losing your championship lead, and and probably the championship lead that not a lot of you will be thinking of, but in the positions gain championship? Because it must be said, a pole to win isn't exactly what you're looking for there.
I know, terrible, isn't it? My whole goal for since the midpoint of the season is to been able to keep that award going, and I've kind of shot myself in the foot by doing so well today. I'm hoping that because I'd been so bad in quali up until this point that I'm kind of safe for the rest of the season in that award. I think I might be, considering how terribly it's gone up until now. I mean, that's the first time I qualified inside the top 10 this season, let alone a pole position. So, I mean, yeah, I think in that sense I should be safe. And I'm assuming, and tracks like Mexico and Baku don't necessarily suit me as well as this one. So I'm sure I'll be able to make up the positions in those races that I didn't make up in this one.
Excellent. I guess I'll hand it back over to you, Jack, and we can hear from our second place finisher and still championship leader, Mr. TFG Knuth.
Yeah, certainly can. So Knuth, once again, I think we may as well just keep you in these parties at this point, because every single time I just seem to be speaking to you every week anyway. So, yeah, back on the podium once again. Not the spot that you probably would have wanted anyway, but I mean, it was still, again, it was like a race of strategy from throughout the entire thing. I know you was running in third for quite a lot of that race as well. How was that one for you? Because as I said, I know it was more of a strategy trying to, get past Packer and get past Car Mentalist. How was that feeling for you?
Not too bad actually, because I'm kind of used to like sitting back and driving behind other guys. I think that's the position where I'm usually good at. And yeah, it was basically qualifying was a complete mess. Like with a whole new setup, I changed a little bit because of the rain, and I always messed up the first sector. I just couldn't nail it on any laps. And basically that held me back to like, I think it was P5 or P4. And yeah, it was basically just sitting back and looking what the other guys do, because as everyone knows, overtaking in the rain is basically impossible except for if the guy in front of you makes a mistake. So that was basically my mindset for the whole race, just sitting back and looking what the other guys do. And especially when the rain started to get a bit less, and the soft started to get better. It was basically just for me like looking what the other guys do and just pit when the other guys pit, because I had a pretty huge gap to do at that point. Which, to be fair, I don't know what happened, because he was relatively fast at the start and he just dropped off and let me go past. So I don't know if he had damage or something like that, or if his tires overheated. But there was definitely something going on with him.
Yeah, no, I was just about to ask that as well at the beginning, because I was going to say, you was battling with Killer Blue at the beginning, and then I don't know what had happened, but you just managed to sort of pull away from him, and then just that was that. Then, like you didn't see him for the rest of the race, but yeah, I was just about to ask if you knew what was going to happen with him, but I suppose you've answered that question. Yeah, I mean, as I said, like in those last closing laps as well, you had the DRS enabled. Was there like a few mistakes that sort of crept in from you, or is it just a case that there was just certain corners, like you said? I know in the first sector you were saying it was a bit of a struggle, but were there maybe like a few other corners where you just thought I just can't get close to him or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. In the last sector, I was struggling a lot, which meant that I was always like 7 or 8 tenths behind commenter list.
Yeah.
But other than that, I felt really fast in the middle sector, and that's where I overtook Pekka too. Because always in Acqua Minerale I had a better exit than both of them, so that was pretty much my go-to corner for trying to make a little move, and well, it worked at one time, and yeah, that basically gave me P2 because there was absolutely no way that I would have gotten P2 otherwise, mainly because of the DS train.
Yeah, no, of course, and obviously we've got Mexico next week as well. Is that one that could possibly also favour for yourself to try and jump up that championship even more? Because you've now gone from 12 points to 16 points. I think you picked up the fastest lap as well, so you've now got a 16-point gap up ahead of Packer for the final 4 races. Is Mexico one that particularly favours you, or are you quite fond of it?
No, not really. I haven't done much of it yet, but PSGL on Monday is in Mexico too, so I'm probably going to practice a little bit more for it than for the other tracks. But yeah, it's an okay track, I guess. It's not the worst, but I don't particularly like it, so I'm just gonna have to see where I end up pace-wise.
Yeah, of course. And Dan, any questions for our second place finisher for tonight?
Yeah, just I guess just looking towards these last 4 races in general, you still lead the drivers. I believe you still lead the constructors as well. Just how confident are you in just maintaining that? I guess across the other 3 tracks as well. What are your confidence levels looking towards Baku, Suzuka, and Interlagos to round out the calendar?
I wouldn't say that I'm super confident, but definitely with the last few races being really good for me. I think that I slowly start to get a little bit more consistent in terms of pace, especially in qualifying, which was basically the issue for me all season long. So I'm feeling a bit more confident in that regard, but yeah, obviously Pekka's hella fast and Killer Bill is hella fast and Gurn is hella fast. So basically everyone is hella fast, and then there's always 1 or 2 guys who are specifically really good on 1 or 2 tracks. Like Commentalist today, I'm not gonna lie, he was the fastest guy today. He was absolutely rapid, so definitely a deserved win. And basically that's how it's been all season, and that's how it's probably gonna be in the last few races. The pace is basically everyone is really close together on pace, so it's really difficult to tell where I might end up.
Yeah, and that unpredictability is what's made this season so entertaining. That is without a doubt. Thank you very much, man. And I guess I'll hand it back over to you, Jack, to hear from our 3rd place finisher and 2nd place man in the championship, Mr. QVR Packer.
No. Packer. I know you're not happy with that race for certain, because I know you at one point you was obviously leading in that race. That uphill chicane just looked like that was the absolute death of you. In that
it was
race.
terrible.
Yeah, I could see that many times. It just looked like you just couldn't get to grips with that, like getting the traction out of that. Obviously, when it went from the intermediates to the soft tyres, or the changeable tyres, shall I say, you got that gap obviously from Car Mentalist. Was there any intention of maybe coming in a bit later, or did you maybe think it might end up going back to like wet tyres or anything like that?
Well, I was hoping that it would stay on the inters because I was actually pretty comfortable on the inters for once. So I was hoping it would stay inters, and then it went dries, like halfway through about. I saw Gary set that fastest lap, and then Jake set a fastest lap once I was already in the pit lane, so I was like, yeah, it's time for the dries. I was able to jump Aiden, but after 2 or 3 laps, I just couldn't keep it on the track. I had so many different snaps through so many different corners. I probably had oversteer at every single corner at least 5 times, so it was kind of a struggle.
Yeah, no, as I said, I know, and it did look like you were sort of struggling with that as well. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it looked like it was a very entertaining race between you and commenters at the very beginning as well. And yeah, it just looked like you two just pulled it out completely, and then, as I said, you were just racing with each other, and then that was just about it. Was there any sort of intention that you was going to try and maybe go for him a bit earlier on whilst it was still intermediates, or was you planning on just sort of chilling behind him, waiting for him to make some sort of mistake, and then trying to just sort of pounce on that mistake?
Well, after about lap 7, that was the plan because I was able to close up through area, well, whatever the last chicane is, the Yeet chicane. I was trying to, like, there was one lap where I got super close. It was like a tenth and a half on the exit, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and make a move this lap. And then Aiden was just able to keep in front because it's impossible to follow through the Ravazzas, and then he used ERS on the pit straight, and I just wasn't able to get any closer from then on. So it was kind of the plan, but then once I realized I couldn't get much closer than about 4 or 5 tenths, I knew the move probably wasn't going to be on unless he made a mistake, and he just didn't. So fair play to Aiden. But there was a little moment at turn 1 on lap 1, or turn 2, I guess, on lap 1, where I was going to send it around the outside, and I decided to back off, just thinking that if I go out here, it's going to be a race over. So I backed off, and then Aiden backed off, so I could have sent it around the outside, you know.
We won't talk about that one.
I suppose that's what happens. That's what just happens in racing, I suppose. But and then yeah, obviously Mexico for next week as well. Is this one where you'd say that you're going to try and maybe claw it back a bit in the championship? Because as I said, 16 points is the gap now, with 4 races left to go. I know it's not exactly the easiest thing, but I mean, well, even these next 4 tracks, are they ones that maybe favour you at all?
Well, I'd like to think Mexico favors me as well as Japan, and I'm not too sure about Brazil, but Azerbaijan and Brazil, I'm not too much of a fan of. I think Brazil, I've done a little bit of Brazil, and I think I have some decent pace for the end of the season, but Azerbaijan, I don't know what's going to be going on at Azerbaijan. It's going to be a crazy race. So hopefully Mexico and Japan, I can finally show some pace. And if it doesn't rain at Japan, I should have a good shot, unlike last season. So, yeah, hopefully.
Fair enough, fair enough. And Dan, any questions for our 3rd place finisher for tonight?
Yeah, you're absolutely right on Baku, by the way. I have no idea what's going to happen in that race, which I'm unfortunately going to be missing. But I guess a similar question to... Nothing I could do about it, my friend. But just looking ahead, a similar question to what I asked Knuth. Are you confident? Do you still think 16 points down is a decent margin with 4 races to go, but you know it can always change? Are you still confident that you can claw that back?
Yeah, well, I don't know if confidence is the word, but I'm hoping that I'm able to close down the gap. Knuth he's really quick, really consistent, and I think, well, hopefully both of us would be in Division 1 if it stays the same like this next season. But yeah, he's pretty much Division 1 pace now, and I'm not entirely sure if I can be that consistent and keep that pace up for the rest of the season. So not confident, but hopeful. Hopefully he'll make some mistakes, but it's kind of a big ask.
It's kind of annoying that we have 2 really nice guys fighting for the title. There's no drama like we had back in Season 3, but nevertheless, you guys continue to put on a great show week in, week out. Thanks to all 3 of you for your input after what I imagine was a very tense race with all you guys, but I guess I'll hand it back over to you, Jack, to get things round up for the 13th round of the season at Imola. Great stuff out there on track tonight. Back to you, Jack.
Certainly is. So, as I said, there's 4 more rounds left to go, 4 more weeks to go as well, and I get the feeling this is going to be a very, very tense one, to say the least. We have got Mexico next week. Make sure you guys are tuning in for that one. Of course, Division 1, 3 and 4, as always, at 6:30 PM GMT, and Division 2 and Division 5 at 8:10 PM GMT. Make sure you guys do tune in for that one, because, as I said, there's a lot of championships that are going to start to be decided very, very soon. Obviously, Division 1, I'm pretty sure that's already almost pretty much done anyway. We've got this battle that's going on.
Nah, Viva Verstappen.
Actually, yeah, no, to be fair, you still got the QVR driver of Verstappen that has that chance, but I mean, that's only really if Montana decides he doesn't want to show up for the last 4 races. yeah, obviously we've got this battle for Division 2. Division 3 battle with Brendan, Carwin and Tinkan. Division 4 as well, we've got, I think, of Maverick and Ryan B, as well as Marty in that now as well. And then Division 5, I think, is really just the last show at that point. So Division 1 and 5, I'm pretty sure will be wrapped up very soon. But all the rest, you need to try and tune in for all of those, because I can tell you now, these could all come down to that wire. So thank you everybody for watching for tonight. Make sure, as I said, you tune in for next week for round number 14 around the Mexican circuit. Take care.